I moved in to live with my mom here in Los Angeles for the first time in my life. And so when I moved back to Los Angeles, I went to Hamilton High, and as Elle had mentioned, and there's three quick things I want to share with you guys. You know, the first one is about finding something that you're passionate about. And the reason why I say find something that you're passionate about, because you can't put all of your eggs in one basket. And specifically what I mean by that, so my passion was sports. I love sports, but I always knew that I was good enough for sports to get me a free education. Now, of course, I had aspirations to go to the NBA, but the probability, and I was just talking to a former high school classmate of mine at Hamilton, Charles McGlurkin, who's standing back there, who went to SC, and he's an attorney. But we were talking about how kids get so focused on either sports or entertainment as careers, and they're actually pretty short-lived. And so what we need to do is really help you guys find what you're passionate about, because your passion can open up doors for other opportunities. As Eldridge mentioned, for me personally, my passion around basketball actually opened up an opportunity for education. And if there's one thing that I can leave you with today is education. And when I say education, you got to be striving for at least a college degree. Because statistically, it's proven time and time again, for people who have a college degree, their life journey is going to be so much more fulfilling than those who don't. And so my passion was a vehicle to a free education. And for me, you know, education is the key to opportunity. Because without an education, your opportunities, I hate to say it, is going to be somewhat limited. And so if there's one thing that I could share with you guys today, it's really about the educational piece. And the thing that frustrates me, I live in Seattle now. Me and Elle, we go to a lot of high school games, we go to a lot of college games. And we actually follow the kids from high school, right? And then when they go to college, I look at their profiles on the roster, and it typically has a line in terms of what do you aspire to be, what is your career, and I see be a professional basketball player. And that just hurts my heart, because even if you're fortunate enough to be a professional basketball person, that's going to be a relatively short career. So what the heck are you going to do after you finish playing a sport? And so you got to really think about the educational piece. And then the last thing I'll leave you with, I didn't formally introduce myself because it's not all about that, but I'm the Executive Vice President for our North American license business. And so that's about a $2 billion business for Starbucks, and it's the second largest business that we run as a corporation. Sports and education has put me in a great position to lead others, and that's what I would challenge you guys to do. Is not just be a player, but how can you be a leader, right? How can you be the boss? Now, I ain't talking about, who's that guy's name, Rick Ross? I ain't talking about Rick Ross. I'm talking about how can you lead others? Because a lot of times what we do is we limit, or we'll put a glass ceiling on our capabilities by just wanting to be a participant. But if you did a quick comparison, and I'll leave you with this. If you looked at the NBA, I'll use that as an example. There's roughly 30 teams in the NBA, right? 15 players, so you do the math, it's about 450 positions, right? Now I'm talking about Starbucks. Starbucks, we have over 20,000 stores. We're going to grow to 30,000 stores. It's globally. We support over 300,000 partners. And what we're looking for future leaders to run those businesses. And so it doesn't have to be Starbucks. It could be Nike. It could be Google. It could be Amazon. It could be Boeing. But just broaden your perspective in terms of how can I position myself to get an education, learn from my passion, be it sports. My wife has taught me a lot in terms of it doesn't have to be sports. It could be theater. It could be music. It could be arts. But how can those experiences put you in a position to ultimately lead others? So with that, it's a pleasure to be here. As Elle had mentioned, went to Hamilton High, actually went to Santa Monica City College, and not because I didn't have the grades to go to a university, but I wanted to go and play Division I ball. And so I went to Santa Monica City College, then to USD, and worked for Mobile coming out of school, and actually went back to school because I got with an organization that would pay for your MBA. And it's been a very, humbling and blessing, journey that I've been on. And to be able to come here and just speak to you guys for a couple minutes is fantastic. As Elle had mentioned, this is a facility, believe it or not, where I started to really build confidence in my game that I could actually compete to the next level. but I knew that I always had to have that education to fall back on. So thanks for the time. Thanks for the partnership.
Quick question.
Yes. Oh, I did want to open it up for some questions. Thank you.
I ask you a
Please.
question right quick?
Please.
What do these kids, young kids need to do to prepare themselves to go into the business world and be able to work for an organization like Starbucks?
Well, there's a couple different things. I think just like you'll find like these players here, you say, ooh, I want to be just like them. Well, if you look around this room, there's a lot of professionals. You need to start casting a broader net to say, okay, if I want to be like Chris, what the heck do I need to do? And so I'm a big supporter of start with the end in mind, right? And so when you find out things that you have an interest in, and you have to follow your passion, it could be a business person, it could be an attorney, whatever it is, you have to start with an objective, and then the most important thing to answer your question, you got to socialize it. And what I mean by that is then you have to tell your parents, you have to tell your teachers, walk into your classroom tomorrow or on Monday and tell your teacher that I want to be a scientist. I can guarantee you'll have a different conversation with that teacher in terms of, well, if you're serious about it, they'll lay out that roadmap for you. The thing is, we typically don't go public. We typically don't socialize what our aspiration is. And you can't hold that within. Let people know. Now, we're quick to let people know I want to play professional basketball. And I'm like, yeah, but the probability is so small. Any other questions? Anything. You can ask about Starbucks, about me, about Al. I know a lot about Al.
I'll tell them nothing about me.
Yes. Can I get a free? Oh, well, see, one thing we look for, leadership courage. My man said free Frappuccino. Can I get one? There's a Starbucks card. You got it. Put it in your sock because you got to play some ball today. Oh, now everybody. Yeah. Free who? Tully's. Did you say Tully's? Oh, chips. No, we can't go down the free bucket. See, yeah, it's about leadership courage, not leadership follow. So not to be harsh, but no, man, I gotta hook you up. You were second. No more freebies though.
No, you got a question.
You gotta ask a question.
Yeah, white one.
Yes. Yes.
If we want to do like a game only, like, are we gonna still do games?
What do you mean, game here today?
No, like a practice game.
A practice basketball game? Well, they'll explain to you guys. I think you're going to go through some drills, and you may do some scrimmages as well. But I wanted to answer any questions about, it could be about sports. It could be about business. I would love to talk more about business and about education. Yes, young lady.
Well, how does it change your profession?
You change your profession. That's a great question. See, the thing about acquiring leadership skills is they're transferable, right? And what I mean by transferable, I used to work at ExxonMobil, which is a petroleum company, right? But if you develop leadership skills and characteristics, you can make a decision in your career to say, now I want to work for Starbucks, or I want to go work for Nike. I feel pretty confident that I have the leadership skills to go and work in any particular segment or business. Yes? He said, did you guys hear that? Is it hard to be the executive vice president? No. And the reason why I say that, my philosophy on leadership is servant leadership. And this is what I learned through sports. It ain't about me, it's about my team, right? And so my success is a function of how do I create an environment where my people can be successful? How can I empower them? Because there's no way. There's 8,000 stores that fall under my responsibility. There's no way that I can manage that. So I have to give my team the tools, the confidence to run those businesses. And also create an environment. People are going to make mistakes. When they make a mistake, as long as you're trying to take care of the customer, that's a great mistake to make. Great question. Yes. And you guys keep me on time because I can sit up here,
Talk forever.
Any job that I could pick, why Starbucks? Man, okay, I'm going to try to give you the Reader's Digest version on this one because this is a tough one. And I'll tell you. So I grew up, I was born in LA, but I grew up in Pomona. Good friend of mine, I was having this conversation with him. We used to go fishing. And my daughter saw this picture of us fishing, with fish. And she said, do you still know that guy? And I said, yeah, his name is Renard. Do you talk to him? I said, we talk a couple times a year. And she said, she was laughing at the picture, and so what that generated for me was, I need to pick up the phone and call Renard. I called Renard, and he said, I said, Chris, or Renard, do you remember this picture of us in Puddingstone? It's called Frank G. Benelli Park now, but it was called Puddingstone back then. And he said, yeah. And I said, how many years ago do you think that picture was taken? He said, oh, 20 years ago. I said, no, do the math. He said, oh, 30 years ago. I said, no, do the math. Where we ended up on the conversation, and it's hard for you guys to believe it, but as I talked about playing in this gym, it was 35 years ago. That seems like a lifetime. I'm telling you, it'll be here before you know it. So to fast forward the story, at that time we were like 40 years old. And we said, if we're blessed to live to our age, we're at the halftime of our life, right? And so he's a big sports guy. He said, okay, so you're in the locker room, it's halftime. What do you want to do the second half of your life that you didn't do the first part of your life? And it was all about enjoying the journey. And so I got a call from a recruiter who was telling me about opportunities at Starbucks. I really wasn't interested in it. But as I started to engage in conversations with their leadership team, I just felt personally for me, it was a place where I could be, where I can enjoy the journey.
Last question.
What's the what? What's the part? Like, what am I responsible for? There's really two things that I focus on. It's about identifying and developing future leaders, right? Because when I talk about those thousands and thousands of stores, people have to feel confident that they can run them. And so my responsibility is to make sure that we have development plans. So it's almost like basketball. How are you going to get your game better? Well, how are you going to get your leadership skills better? That's one. The second one is about strategy, right? And strategy is looking out into the future, trying to anticipate what customer needs are and what the business needs are. So we're constantly sitting in the office just talking about how do I come up with beverages, that Frappuccino that this young man right here is going to like, so we can continue to attract new customers into our facility. All right. I think okay, one more. One more. You guys pick them.
Who has a good question? And it's not a free question. If it's free, put your hand down. But it's a really, really good question. Okay, you look really excited, so we're gonna let you do yours.
That is a great question. Did you guys hear it?
Stand up. Stand up. Stand up. Say it loud so everybody can hear you.
Yes. Great question. So first off, to be a leader, you don't really have to have a specific major. But if you want to get into business, and I always knew I wanted to get into business, so my undergrad degree was in business administration because I wanted it to be broad. And I characterized myself as a poster child of a free education. So I was able to get a free education undergrad on a basketball scholarship. Then I worked for ExxonMobil, who paid, and this is one thing you guys got to think about as you work for companies. Who has benefits that are going to help you elevate yourself? So when I was with ExxonMobil, and since my father had instilled in me the importance of education, they had a free tuition reimbursement program. And what that meant that I could go to any university for my master's degree. So then after I got about 10 years experience, I went back to school and I got a master's degree in business, but at that time I knew I wanted to emphasize in marketing and finance. And so to answer your question, business undergrad degree, master's in business, finance, and marketing. Great question.
All right.